Okay, we are live. Hello, everyone. My name is Nikki Collins-Geigert, and I'd like to welcome you to StreamYard broadcast for ReadersMagnet. And we are today interviewing Carol Wilson-Mack, who is not only an author, but she is also a stage writer and all kinds of things like that. So just to give you a background, right now we have 150 authors, and there are over 6,000 attendees. So just be aware that most of our interviews are on this weekend. There's interviews going on tomorrow, and then next Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. And along with that, there are different interviews for authors occurring during the week. And please visit each one of our 150 authors' booths to see what they've been up to. And in my booth on Wednesday at 4 o'clock Pacific Daylight Time and 7 o'clock Eastern Daylight Time, I am going to be doing a presentation with my co-author on this little old book that I wrote called Read, Move, Learn. And it gets into the intricacies of when you co-author, who does what? And do you have fights? Do you get along? So we'll delve into all of those kinds of things. And how do you reach agreements as to how the book ultimately comes out? And so along with that, let me just give you a little bit about myself. I have quite a varied background. I started out as a physical education teacher, and then I became a gymnastics coach because out of all the sports I taught, gymnastics was my favorite. I became a gymnastics school owner. And at one point in time, one of my students was Tracy Talavera, who was an Olympic gymnast, 1980 and 1984, and she was a silver medalist on beam. And I was also an instructor for USA Gymnastics. So I met an awful lot of the gymnasts, which was great fun. And then I went back to school, got my master's degree, and I was teaching all over the United States for NAEYC and Head Start and a lot of different groups like that. And then I was asked to become an international education consultant. So then I was kind of training teachers in different areas of the world. And along with that, I was a personal fitness trainer. So the work that I did as a gymnastics school owner, I put together a curriculum guide for preschoolers, and that became a national bestseller. And then after that, I co-wrote the book Read, Move, Learn, for teachers to incorporate more physical activity into the classroom, into early childhood. But behind all of that, I've always been a photographer. I started photography as a 10-year-old, and that has been my lifelong hobby. And then after I retired from all of those things, I traveled the world. I've been on all 7 continents, and I do wall art. and I incorporate my photography into my books that I've written. And I have one cute little story here. Who's Yawning Now? And that's all about animals throughout the world that I have caught yawning. And so I tell their story and what their level of endangerment is. So that's about me. And I'm going to invite Carol to tell you all about her background and how she arrived at the book that she has written called Patch Quilt. And go from there. So please welcome Carol Wilson-Mack.
Thank you,
Thank you,
Nikki.
Nikki.
My name is Carol
Carol
Wilson-Mack,
Wilson-Mack,
and I started out just being a humanitarian for everybody, which is reflected in the choices of things that I've done in my life. So I'm a retired nursing professional. I worked in the healthcare industry in New York City for many years. I worked with New York City Department and also with the New York City hospitals. And we did surveys for hospitals and long-term care facilities. In elementary school, I wrote scripts for the school for every program and every holiday. Anytime we needed something, I would write a program, not thinking or hoping to be a writer, but nonetheless writing. So writing has always been a part of my life. And the book Patchwork, it's called Patchwork Conversations Between Generations. It's actually not about quilting. It's about encouraging people to talk to each other, to not just choose your generation to talk to, but to talk to everybody, but especially sharing information with the different generations. And I think that's very important nowadays.
Mm-hmm. Anything else you'd like to add?
Yes, I would also like to mention the other book, the first one that I wrote, which is called Fan Loyalty. That one it's about the importance of words. It's about the words that we choose in our lives. They have effects on whatever comes forth in our life. Like there's a scripture that says, life and death is in the power of the tongue, and those who use it would bear its fruit. So fan loyalty is about when you say something, it will unfold in your life. I tributed fan loyalty to the singer Brooke Benton because he was someone that people knew. He was a very popular singer in the 60s. So people would remember him and know him. So I attributed that to him. So when I go back to the beginning of the writing from elementary school, when I started the writing, just writing little programs for our school, little did I know that it would come to this. But my initial writing was basically scripts because I was able to respond to things pretty quickly. So when something happened, I could always make up a story and create a story, but it was always in script form. So it was only 2013 that I started writing, books. So 2013 was Fan Loyalty. That was the year that Fan Loyalty came to be. So both of the books have a message to humanity. I think in my life, everything that I've always done has been something that touches humanity. I guess that's true for everybody, but these are particularly sensitive to human beings and how they interact with each other. When we say life and death is in the power of the tongue, when you share information with another author or with another person, your interaction is reflective of who you are and what you're engaging in. And that's why it's so important, because you don't want to say something that's hurtful to someone, because it's always going to come back to you. It's like a boomerang. There's no escape for that. So we need to think about the kinds of things that we say. Now, Patchwork, the core creator of Patchwork was a woman who shared her wisdom with the younger women in the community. And a lot of the younger women were coming to her, and they were talking about the weather was getting cold and they weren't sure that they had enough bed coverings for their families. So she created a platform for them to make bed coverings. And during the process of making these quilts, each of the women had stories and they shared those stories. And they may not have done it intentionally, but what evolved was a venue that they were able to share and support and pray for each other. And that's what happened during these meetings. So Patchwork is not really about making quilts, although the characters are making quilts, but they're patching the quilts for coverings for their families, but they're also patching the lives of each of the women for the things that they are having challenges in their lives.
That is just awesome. That's just such a beautiful thought. And I know I appreciate it. I would actually like to read the synopsis of Patchwork. But before I do, if you are just joining us now, hello again. My name is Nikki Collins Geigert. This is Carol Wilson-Mack that I am interviewing. And if you have any questions, please type them out, and we can ask them to Carol in about probably 20 minutes, or if it's pertinent to exactly what she's saying, we might just interject it just right then and there. So right now I want to read what Carol has to say about Patchwork. It says, Patchwork represents the stories and lives of women living in rural Bamberg, South Carolina during a time period of approximately 1939 to 1959. These God-centered women created an atmosphere that allowed the participants to help their families. Quilting was their point of focus. However, this activity provided an opportunity to share their challenging stories. Patchwork encourages us to find a way to bridge the gap between generations by sharing helpful information through conversation. Both groups of the youth and the elder must be open to a two-way conversation. Being the elder doesn't mean that you have to monopolize teaching, and you need to consider that youth also have something to say. Patchwork says we should have that conversation. So my first question to you, Carol, is how did you did you meet these women? Did you read something about what they were doing, or what? Can you tell us about that?
Two of the women in Patchwork were grandparents.
Mm-hmm.
The other women were women in the community that the grandparents were helping by creating the quilts for their families. I was the child on the floor, threading needles, picking up pins, and threading the needles, finding thimbles and pen cushions for the women. And often hearing some of the stories and maybe understanding a little bit because children are able to pick up sadness or gladness in adults.
Mm-hmm.
So, but during that era, children were not, children were seen, as my grandparents would
And
say.
not heard.
That's right. That's right.
That's my generation.
Yeah, so that definitely was a gap. But I'm not sure. Like I was talking to someone about this, and she says, I'm not sure that we need to listen. We have to. So I said to her, we have to hear them because you know what? We will be dependent. Look at me. I'm dependent on another generation to help me with the technology. You know
Mm-hmm.
what I mean? So we're going to be forced to talk to them, to interact with them
Mm-hmm.
through the technology. But I think it is important that we talk to people outside of our generation, outside of our race. We need to interact because we can build a firmer foundation for living for all human beings if we do that, because you don't want to keep building foundations. If you keep building foundations, you'll never have a house. So we want to build, and sharing information, sharing knowledge, and hopefully we'll put it into use and in place. So that's why it's very important. I think this is such an important piece of what we need to continue our lives and improve upon our lives.
So, was there one point in your life that inspired you to tell the story of these women?
Well, a lot of the youth in my family, they've heard a lot about these grandmothers, these two characters, my Anna and my Carrie in Patchwork. A lot of the young people heard about the women. In fact, one of the young people in my family, she says, I'm so thankful that you wrote it because my mother was raised by Grandma Anna, but this young person never met her great great grandmother, but she would hear her mom talk about her. So Patchwork was able to share much more about Ma Anna to this young person. So she was appreciative. She felt like she was introduced to a great great grandmother through reading of that piece.
Oh, that's just awesome. So, you said that you wrote your first book in 2013. Had what had you done before that? You were writing scripts for plays or?
Yes, I was writing short scripts because people would give me a theme for a program that they would want to do in their church, and
Mhm.
I would always want it to be scripturally accurate. So that drove me to study Bible to make sure that I had the information right. So I would say to them, give me a theme. They would give me the theme that they wanted. I would create a play covering that theme thoroughly as I could. I would go to that church and I would cast the play with their people, and then the message would be shared in that particular venue. Not necessarily all churches. We've done some on stages outside of churches, but I started by responding to the need for information to cover a particular theme and let it be true to scripture. That's how it all started.
Mhm. Interesting. So, even as a child, did you want to be a writer or at what point?
Well, I don't think I thought a lot about writing, but I thought a whole lot about reading. So I read so much till, and finally, when I read, I Know Why the Cage Bird Sang, I was like,
Oh.
oh. And then in elementary school, junior high school, and high school, in our English classes, we had to read from Reader's Digest and always make a report to the class.
Uh-huh.
So nobody wanted the feature. So Carol always got the feature because I love to read. So I was always the feature. So the feature of the Reader's Digest for the month, because every student in the class had to take one story.
You're right.
So I didn't ever have to worry that my story would be repeated because nobody would take the longest piece from Reader's Digest. So that's where I started reading, and I fell in love so much with reading until I finally said, maybe I could write a little bit too. Maybe I could share my story. Because I realized how much I was benefiting from the reading.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, my ideas might be simple, but who knows, somebody might still benefit from this. So I
Mm-hmm.
decided to share it.
Very
And
good.
lucky I was able to connect with this wonderful publisher because you know what? If you write, you need people who read. And in
Yep.
order for the people to read, you need somebody to publish it for you. So we have to be grateful for the readers and grateful for the publishers and grateful for everybody and everybody who's doing something in this arena.
Uh-huh. Yeah. So, um, what kind of advice would you give someone that's just kind of thinking about writing, but maybe not knowing where to start or what to do, or even what their subject matter might be?
Well, I think if you're thinking about writing, you need to start because to become a writer, you have to write. So you could start by writing a little bit every day about the topics that's important to you, the topics that you know something about, the topics that you feel that somebody would benefit from it. Because I think that we're actually given ideas so to share it with other people.
Mm-hmm. And I would say along with that, if you, I've always been a person that journals. So, no matter where I go in the world, I'm always journaling. What did I see? What did I do? How did I feel? Um, what were my thoughts? I think those probably are important in the process of writing also. Um, so, if any point in time, either with your first book or your second book, did you have what they call writer's block? It's like,
I hear that term a lot, writer's block. And I'm like, when I was doing Patchwork, one of the characters left the story and she just went somewhere. And I was saying to my sister, Mary has gone. And
what
my
are you
sister's like,
gonna
well, who's Mary? And then she says, well, where did she go? And I was like, well, I don't know. Well, why are you telling me? And then she says, that's a very strange thing you're saying. But one of the characters left, and I really didn't know where she was going or why she left. And it was like, maybe this is what the industry means when it says writer's block, because I never really truly understood it because I felt like if I'm blocked, I'm always going to find a way around the block. So I
do?
guess that probably was Mary is gone. Now, what do I do? These characters had come together. So I said, you know what? I don't have to worry about Mary. I'll write something else. So I don't feel like I'm blocked. I feel like maybe this story is on hesitation for now, but I can go write something else because if we're going to be successful or if we're going to succeed as a writer, we have to keep writing.
Mm-hmm.
If something physically blocks your path, you find a way around it.
Mm-hmm.
So if you can do that in the physical, you can do it in your writing as well.
So what did you do with Mary? Did you take her out or did you make up her story?
She is she is the one. Nikki, she is the one who left. I didn't send her anywhere.
No,
I
I know,
created
but
her.
did you just drop her there, or
Well,
what did
she
you?
left the story, but she did come back.
Oh,
She
okay.
did come back, but she had good reasons to. But when she left, we didn't know why. The other characters didn't know why she left. But
Uh-huh.
um, well, they had an idea, but they wasn't absolutely sure because she didn't announce her leaving. She just left because she was caught up in sadness. She had experienced a tragedy, so
Oh.
she left the story. So if that was writer's block, then it actually gave me opportunity to explore another genre. So I
Mm-hmm.
went and started something else.
Oh. Huh. So, what do you think, in your opinion, what are the some good elements of important elements of good writing? What should good writing include?
Well, good writing should include good characters. I spend a lot of time on my characters. I give them names that matches their personalities. I create the personalities first. I even give them dates of births
Mm.
and horoscope signs and places that they may like to visit based on the locale of the story. So I have personalities and I know the kind of personality that matches this character. So I'm going to know if somebody's out of character. So that's not something Mary would do, or that's not something Sappy will do. So I will continually work on the characters because once they come together, they take the story to where it should go.
Hmm.
And Mary did, I was concerned when Mary left, but I was very concerned because she was like a core character. She started the whole process. So
Mm.
now that she's gone, what will the other characters do? But they kind of held on and they were concerned about her and they talked about her. They said prayers for her. And
Hmm.
then eventually it came when it before the book is closed, you know what happened to Mary and you get the whole story.
So you have a bit of a mystery there going on.
Yeah, it's a mystery. Yeah.
Okay, so in that process, do you focus first on plot or do you develop your characters first?
I definitely developed the characters.
And then
Character.
you put them into some sort of a situation or what?
Yes. They tell me, I know this, some people say this sounds strange, but yes, the character tells me where the story should go based on the information that they share initially. Then we hear their challenge. Well, at least for Patchwork. This may not be true for every book, but for Patchwork, each of the characters had a challenge that they were facing, and each one shared with the reader the direction that they took, the pain that they felt, and the direction that they took to combat the pain or do whatever they needed to do to get through the challenge. But what's so good about this group of women, they are supporting each other.
Mm,
They are caring for each other. They're not, you know, downgrading each other. They're strong women and they acknowledge their challenge. They're not ashamed of their challenge because whatever it is, it is. And they're trying to survive. And it takes the support of women or people that you interact with. It takes the support of those people for you to survive and thrive.
mm. So do you take that same approach when you are writing stage scripts as far as plot and character and those kinds of things?
I think I when I do the script, I probably focus more on plot
Mm-hmm.
because I don't I see myself as a serious person, but yet when I write script, except for when it's a biblical script, I find myself going into comedy. I don't know. Comedy comes very natural for me in script writing. I
Mm.
have a film script now, and it's called Faint Communication, and it's very funny. It is so funny. And I didn't start out being funny. I just wanted to show the difference in how people misunderstand when they're not on the same page. And throughout the duration of this script, nobody is on the same page all throughout the script.
Oh my goodness. That sounds like that could be dangerous.
Yes, it's dangerously funny.
Oh, so you said that you're retired from nursing. Is that correct?
Yes, but I feel like I'm still doing a little bit because I'm talking to a lot of family members who are experiencing hesitancy about the vaccine. So you're still doing, some education in terms of
Yeah.
what's going on in healthcare, and I'm not doing it big time, but I find myself at the beginning of COVID, I spoke to so many nurses who was experiencing sadness because so many of their coworkers had died. And I did a lot of, guess, grief counseling and
Mm,
support to my old coworkers.
I see. Huh. Yeah. So we're living in a crazy time for sure.
Yeah, it's hard times. That's more reason why we have to be supportive and caring to each other.
Uh-huh. And you said that you have also produced some CDs, and I know that um, uh, because I've done an awful lot of research and whatnot on how the young brain learns, and even people that have dementia and things like that. Music always gets through to all the different areas of the brain.
That's
And
right.
so you said you produced several CDs. Can you tell us about those?
Oh,
One
yes.
gospel and um, what would you like to say about that?
One of them, one of them is just a CD of poetry. There was this poet. His name was George Edward Tate, and
Mhm.
he wrote a lot of poetry. And I used to recite his poems. So that CD is a CD of poetry. It's called "To Women with Love," and it was his words that I wanted to share with the women because I thought his poetry was exceptional. And the music CD, this wonderful woman that I met who had she had such an amazing voice. Her name was Stella Bobian, and
Mm.
she sang gospel. And we recently lost her,
Oh.
but her music is still with us. But the man in the fan loyalty tribute, that was Brooke Benton. He sang in many. I didn't produce any of his music, but Stella's CD. It's called Gospel at Its Best, and the CD of poetry is To Women with Love, and I recite the poetry on that particular CD.
Oh. Okay. So for the audience, where might they get these types of things?
Oh, I have my website is called carolwilsonaccomplished.com, and I have cwmacbooks.com. Both of the CDs, both of the books are all on the websites, and they're mentioned in most social media.
Uh-huh. Okay, so from our audience, if you're just tuning in now, this is time for the audience to ask questions. This is Carol Wilson-Mack, and I am Nikki Collins-Geigert. I am interviewing Carol, so if you have any questions for her, please type them into the chat line so that I can ask. But right now we have from Leanne, my father did the same thing to me. He lets me read an article in Reader's Digest and lets me write a book report about it. That must have been the reason why I became such a wide reader. And then from Rebecca, she says, that is definitely important. The more you make a character alive to you, the more a character will be alive to your readers. I even talk to my characters sometimes. And no, I'm not crazy. I just like to make my characters as believable as possible.
That's
So,
great.
do you ever talk to your characters?
I do. I certainly talked to Mary when she left the story. I was like, where
What
are
were
you
you
going?
thinking? Where are you?
Yes. But
Uh,
that's good interaction. It's really not crazy. Writers understand that.
yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so how do you come up with the titles to your books?
Well, fan loyalty, it says I'm this guy, Brooke Benton, he was popular in the 60s.
Mm-hmm.
So he died in 1988. So for somebody to still, and not only me, it's a whole lot of other people too, because we have a Facebook page and we have over 700 fans to Brooke Benton because his music is still so, I mean,
What,
it's
what are what are some of his songs?
a rainy night in Georgia.
Oh, okay. There you
Ah, you
go.
know that.
Yeah,
Yeah,
of
it's
course
just
I
a
do.
matter of time.
Yeah, he had such a
Yeah,
great
that's
voice.
Brooke Benton. And
Yeah.
you know what? After fan loyalty, someone in Austria contacted me and he shared with me some music in his place that was never published in the States. So I'm still listening to new music.
Mm.
It's new to me because I didn't have it before. And I used to think, I have everything Brooke
The
Benton
whole
has.
collection.
But I didn't. But it connected me to a lot of people. So I'm glad I did that. Now with Patchwork, when this woman comes to my Anna's home, she tells her, I don't think I have enough bed coverings for my family. So I think perhaps I need to make some quilts. So my Anna tells her, we won't just do it between the two of us. We'll call our neighbors to help, and that way we could get it done more quickly. So she started the group. She invited a group of women. 5 families were represented, and they started making quilts for each of the women in the group. So after they started, the challenges that each of the women were facing, they realized they were not only physically patching their quilt together, but they were also patching the families together. So that's how patchwork came to be.
Hmm.
That's how the titles were chosen for each of the pieces.
Oh, I think that's great. So, you mentioned that you were a child at that point in time, picking up pins and threading needles. How many children were actually involved? Were you the
Only
only
me.
child?
I was the only one. My sister was there, but I don't remember her being involved with these kinds of things. And I guess some of these stories I must have heard. I'm bringing back some of the, I may not have it exact, but a
Mhm.
lot of the stories are true, although the book is fiction. I
Ah,
guess this is uh, fiction based in fact. So now that's going to be a new one now. It's going to be called Faction.
oh, okay.
Yeah.
Huh.
It's That's going to be a new area now.
So you're writing a new book just now.
Well, I think I'm doing a sequel. I have a few customers who ask me, "Are you doing a sequel to Patchwork?" They want to know that the they want the conversations to continue. And I
Mm.
said, some of the characters from Patchwork, they have gone on, but two of the characters remain. And that's Mary and Trudy, two of the characters, and they are traveling together. And because they were separated for a while, they are catching up as they travel on the time that they were missing from each other. And they're in deep conversation. And the younger woman is asking the older woman, "Do you remember anything from the Patchwork organization?" And she wants her to share as much information from the Patchwork. And they talk about, they really get into relationship. They don't really want to, but somehow they get into relationships while they're traveling. But when they get to their destination, they're going to create a patchwork organization and the conversations will continue. But the venue won't be quilting. They're going to have a book club and
Mm.
they're going to be discussing books, and they're the stories. They'll be sharing the stories about the book of focus.
I see. Huh. I know that both of my grandparents, my grandmothers, were quilt makers. And my one grandmother that lived to be 100, and she died when I was 60. So that was pretty amazing to have my grandmother until I was 60 years old. But she started me in quilting.
Yes.
And just a little 6 by 6 square and putting little tiny patches in this 6 by 6 inch square. And the whole goal was for me to learn how to sew by hand.
Yes.
But
Yes.
she was a storyteller. And so whenever I would get together with her, she would tell me all these stories about her mother, her grandmother, and all of the family, because we lived away from. She grew up in the Louisiana, and
Hmm.
then um, I grew up in the state of Washington. So and she and my grandfather had moved there, and so she would always tell me stories about the family in the South. So it was great fun.
That's a perfect venue. And I'm hearing a lot of the women, they're telling me that quilting is still something that people are doing. I didn't think it was as well. I know it's not as popular today as it was back then, because
Mhm.
when the comforters came, the women are not so much making quilts for their families, but it is the perfect venue that creates storytelling
Exactly, exactly.
because the women just talk to each other, and before you know it, they're sharing stories because they feel supported, they
Mhm,
feel comfortable, they're relaxed, they're
mhm.
sewing, they're accomplishing something. And without them even knowing it, they're accomplishing two things at once. They're venting, they're accomplishing making the quilt, they're creating coverings for their families.
Mhm.
And one of the characters says, "We are not just making the quilts, but we're actually saying prayers over the quilts that the bodies that they cover will be blessed, and their lives will be secure and strong as a result of all of this praying and singing and all of the positiveness that they put in those
Oh, that's awesome. I love that thought. Yeah, that's very, very, very beautiful. I was going to add that I have my great grandmother's quilt that my grandmother had, and then my aunt had, and then she passed on to me.
You see?
So, yeah, and the poor little thing, actually, it's a big thing, but it's a pretty old. It's like over 100 years old and it's disintegrating. So,
Yeah, it gets worn, but you keep it because it's
yeah,
valuable to you.
yes,
Yeah,
exactly.
I
So,
understand.
yeah. And they're having right now, when I was in Alabama last 2 years ago, there were all these different quilts that were up that'd been made for a contest. So, yeah, they're
Yeah,
still carrying on quilting.
yeah, and some people are putting hearts and now with the you can make a picture of someone and put the pictures on the quilt. So they're
Uh-huh.
doing all kinds of things, but they're doing it now more for fun and sharing. When these
Right.
women in 1939 to 1959, they were doing it out of necessity.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
And the fabrics they used were, remember the fabric, the cotton flour sacks?
Yes. Yes. Everything, nothing was wasted.
Nothing went to waste. That's
That's
right.
right.
So I don't see any more questions from our audience. And Carol, would you please tell everyone your website again, just for future reference? Because this will be um, go on YouTube, and people need to be able to look you up.
Sure. It's Carol Wilson Accomplished.com. And the other one is CWMackBooks.com. Both websites have both books, the CDs, and everything that I have to offer.
Very cool. And for me, my website is nikkigeigertbooks.com. And along with the books that I have this one, which is Family Trip to Magical Madagascar and Beyond, and it's all history, animals, and all kinds of things like that in Madagascar. This one is A Girl's Greek Odyssey. And these books were written with my nieces. Um, and all of the photography, I took all of the pictures and told the stories. And so again, nikkigeigertbooks.com, and then just nikkigeigert.com. And that has all of my wall art, fine art, photography. So if you want to freshen up your walls or anything, there's an option for you.
Thank you. Those books
And
look very interesting.
well, I hope so. I think they're interesting because I love history, and you've told a lot about this historical significance of patchwork. So, for anyone that's interested in historical types of things, you got options to purchase. So,
Yes.
Carol Wilson-Mack. Um, we're just finishing up here. Is there anything else that you would like to add before we go?
I would like to thank every person who read Patchwork and found loyalty. I would like to thank the publishers for publishing, and I would thank you for the interview. I thank everybody that's involved with this process because we know writers need readers and writers need publishers. We thank Reader's Magnet and everybody that's involved. I love Reader's Magnet. They say, we share your stories with the world.
That's right. That's right. And everybody, everyone in the audience, you all have stories that you could share. And if you want to take up the computer and start writing, or if you want to start journaling and go from there, you can share your stories too. So thank you, Carol, so much for sharing your story. And if it doesn't look like we have anything more from our audience, so I guess we'll call that an end.
Well, thank you very much.
Okay, y'all take care.